What's your thinking on this? It's an issue that's in the news and in the political news.
Well, first of all, any immigration in the country should be founded on a couple of principles. One, that it is fair to American workers. Second, that it encourages the education of Americans so that they can get as many of these jobs as possible, but also that recognizes that there are certain areas in our economy where there are shortages of workers, and where you don't meet those shortages, you run the risk of businesses locating their entire enterprise in Canada, in Europe, anywhere in the world, in China, India, wherever. And so it makes sense to make sure that companies are able to get the workers they need in order to maintain their business operations in the United States. So the H-1B program, which has existed for a long time, is an important program. It's in need of reform in the workers they need in order to maintain their business operations in the United States. So the H-1B program, which has existed for a long time, is an important program. It's in need of reform. In the last Congress, we passed out of the House Judiciary Committee legislation that reforms the H-1B program, and similar legislation will be introduced again in the near future in this Congress, most likely by Congressman Darrell Issa, who was the author of that legislation in the last Congress. And we look forward to examining that very closely to make sure that we are doing everything we can to encourage economic growth in our economy, and the H-1B program, done properly, does just that. So that's where we are on the issue. Many people have been extremely disappointed with the President's lack of enforcement of our immigration laws, and therefore the committee has also spent a lot of time on enforcement legislation. And I would say that most people in the public want to see those enforcement measures and want to see a president enforce our immigration laws before they see action taken on legal immigration matters, because the fact of the matter is, if you don't trust the enforcement of the law, you're going to be very worried that your job is at stake with the government not protecting you from unfair competition by people simply entering the country, not just across the border, but also entering the country legally on business visas, visitors visas, student visas, and simply overstaying. So this is a situation where the United States is a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And if we are going to have a successful economy in the future, we're going to have respect for the rule of law. And that's not occurring under the leadership of the current administration. And I think that lack of effort in that regard makes it more difficult to pass legislation that's needed, addressing some reforms of our legal immigration program. So let's do the enforcement first.
Well, we've talked about 3 issues and potential legislation for encryption, for ECPA, and for immigration. It's an election year. Is it going to happen?
Well, I would say that there is always the possibility of these things happening when you have bipartisan efforts to do so. I think, for example, we were talking about the issue related to internet sales tax collection. That issue is one that, when we have the right solution, that will be the right time to move it, and I don't think the political environment will play a major role in that. Immigration is a very hotly contested, controversial issue, and until we address the enforcement issues first, it's going to be more difficult to address some of the other things that I certainly acknowledge need to be addressed in the process. With regard to ECPA, that is a bill that has more co-sponsors than any other bill in the House right now, over 300. So I think that, again, if we find the right solution to that, that has every prospect of passing the House. I hesitate to speak for the United States Senate on any of these issues, but obviously for it to become law, it also has to pass the Senate.
Another privacy issue that is kind of on everyone's minds is FISA reform, because certain surveillance authorities are expiring at the end of next year, and you've kind of kick-started the consideration of FISA reform in your committee. What changes do you see needing to get made to that authority? And is this going to come down to the wire like it did with USA Freedom?
Well, it may. Now, it didn't come down to
system should look like. So you want to come to this country. You studied in college in the Philippines or in Poland or wherever. The big place that you will get into this country is you may go to an American university. And then you graduate from an American university, and you've got 1 year. So you get what's called the OPT, or Optional Practical Training Program. You have the ability to work any place if you've got an employer. Okay, great. So like you've graduated from college, we've heavily subsidized your education, by the way. And then the question is, well, what happens then? Well, you've got this kind of 1 year temporary pass. Unfortunately, then we throw these people out in cases here. Now, a lot of people try to get what's called an H1B visa. But to give you a sense of how limiting these are, there's 65,000 slots available. There's another 20,000 slots available for people. Great. So like you've graduated from college, we've heavily subsidized your education, by the way. And then the question is, well, what happens then? Well, you've got this kind of 1 year temporary pass. Unfortunately, then we throw these people out in cases here. Now, a lot of people try to get what's called an H1B visa. But to give you a sense of how limiting these are, there's 65,000 slots available. There's another 20,000 slots available for people with a master's degree. But in the last decade, every single H1B visa has been taken up either between the first day they're available annually or the first week. We don't have a legal immigration system that is letting in enough high-skilled immigrants. Okay, so you get the H-1B, you get to stay here for a while, you decide you want to apply for a green card. Well, anybody here from the Philippines, from China, from India? Anybody in the room? Okay. So, great. So like you've graduated from college, we've heavily subsidized your education, by the way. And then the question is, well, what happens then? Well, you've got this kind of 1 year temporary pass. Unfortunately, then we throw these people out in cases here. Now, a lot of people try to get what's called an H1B visa. But to give you a sense of how limiting these are, there's 65,000 slots available. There's another 20,000 slots available for people with a master's degree. But in the last decade, every single H-1B visa has been taken up either between the first day they're available annually or the first week. We don't have a legal immigration system that is letting in enough high-skilled immigrants. Okay, so you get the H-1B, you get to stay here for a while, you decide you want to apply for a green card. Well, anybody here from the Philippines, from China, from India? Anybody in the room? Okay. So, India? Anybody in the room? Okay. So, if you are from, let's pick India today, and you were to apply for a green card. You get sponsored, you've got a great employer here. Anybody want to guess how long it would take on average for you to get your green card today? 5 years? Higher or lower? Anybody? Higher. How long? 10? 10's a pretty long time. 27, probably, right now, okay? So just pause for a second on what that means. These are people who, for high-skilled immigrants, if you're from some of these high-volume countries, we put a cap and we say, there's only a certain number of immigrants who can come from certain countries. And from China, from the Philippines, from India, where we have a lot of immigrants coming in, people are stuck in this incredible backlog. Just think, it's 2016. You're talking about 2043 before you'd be able to get a green card, which is like well past, into like flying cars, and 43 before you'd be able to get a green card, which is like well past, into like flying cars and that. No, but I say that it's important to kind of put these things in perspective. It's been 25 years since the Soviet Union fell. We said that it's another 25 years until people can get that piece of paper where they have general work authorization and it says, I'm a permanent resident of this country here. And we think we need to dramatically expand that. So, we have a high-skilled immigration system that no longer reflects the values of our country. And if you look historically, the United States has been built by immigrants. Our greatest competitive advantage in the world historically has been that we are a nation of immigrants, that people will risk so much to come here. And so what we are fighting for is to have a system that embraces that. And we are heading into an even more globalized economy, and we think we need a legal immigration system that makes sense for that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Please. You're going to go there too? Okay.
People pay back taxes and fines. They got to learn English. They pass a criminal background check, and at the end of that, they can get, legal status. How, what do you think? Oh, that sounds great. Well, how long do you think it should be? Oh, we should make people wait a really long time, like at least 3 or 4 years. Okay, so the Senate bill, which we tried to pass in 2013, was 13 years. They get demagogued all over the place. I think reform ultimately is going to be a combination of legal status to the undocumented. It looks something like that, with with a temporary followed by permanent status way down the line. Border security and interior security. I think it's important to be honest and say it's going to be more difficult to be an undocumented immigrant after we fix the immigration system, and that's okay, because the part to come back to that first principle is none of this works if we don't fix our legal immigration system. Right now you have these impossible choices ahead of people. Do I move back to some country to start a company, or do I hope back to some country to start a company, or do I hope that I'm gonna get a visa that has to be renewed every 3 months, and a legal immigration system fixed with border security and with legal status. It works really together from a policy standpoint. It works really together because you can bring Democrats and Republicans together around those 3 principles, and that's really important. This is one of the few big issues that has bipartisan support in Washington, D.C. It truly and really does. I can't stress enough how much what you're seeing now is the outsized voices playing to a small percentage of the American electorate. So I think reform will look something like that. I think it's much better to be done right after the election. I think the reasons are for that because of the nature of what's going to come out of that election without going into it. I think that there's tons of points of disagreement within there, what that looks like, but those are the 3 principles that just kind of all fit together well.